Nancy. Are you having an affair? There's a strange man sleeping in Mike's room. Something's not right. Huh? Wait, how did you get in here, Mother? That's not important right now. That's not our room anymore. My name is Nancy. I'm 32 years old and work as a nurse. Mike, my husband, and I don't have any children yet, and we both work. We share household chores, helping each other out in between our busy schedules. Even though it's been 3 years since we got married, I feel like we're still like lovebirds. I'm truly grateful to have married such a wonderful person. However, someone recently appeared and disrupted our peaceful life, my mother-in-law. We moved to our current apartment a few months ago due to Mike's job, and it happens to be close to his parents' home. Since my father-in-law passed away 2 years ago, I felt my mother-in-law was lonely living by herself. That's why when she began visiting us frequently, I thought it was unavoidable. But as her visits increased, her behavior became more audacious, and she began to criticize me more. Nancy, can't you serve tea a bit quicker? You're such an inconsiderate daughter-in-law. I really wonder why Mike married you. Maybe I should move in and teach you a thing or two? The mere thought of living with my mother-in-law is depressing. I couldn't stand it anymore and confided in my husband. It seemed he wasn't aware of her frequent visits, and he scolded her on my behalf. Mom, I understand you're lonely, but you shouldn't take it out on Nancy. I was just trying to give her some advice. She doesn't need it. Above all, I don't want you to bother Nancy. My husband's stern words seemed to have upset my mother-in-law, but I hoped it would make her reflect on her behavior. Thanks to him, her visits stopped for a while. But about a month later, she started visiting us again, always at the worst times for me. One morning, just before 9 a.m., loud knocking echoed from the front door, reaching all the way to the bedroom. I had just returned from a night shift and was about to get some sleep. Wondering who it was, I peeked through the door's peephole and saw my mother-in-law's face. Nancy, I know you're in there. Open up. Hearing her voice and fearing something had happened, I hurriedly opened the door, then she complained about me being so slow. Oh, is there something you needed? Do I need a reason to visit my son's place? Well, I just got back from a night shift and I have to go out again in the evening, so I really need to rest. She wouldn't listen. What's a night shift? Just out having fun all night? That's not true. I've told you I work as a nurse at the hospital, right? Don't lie. How could you let my son work alone while doing such a job? You're the worst. I'm working hard too. I really need to sleep now or it'll affect my job. That doesn't matter. I need to check if you're taking care of the house properly. Huh? My mother-in-law said that as she boldly entered our house. She sat down on the sofa and ordered, "Bring me some tea and snacks right away." I had no choice but to serve her tea and snacks as she demanded. Still, she stayed at our house for quite a while and even had me prepare lunch for her. As a result, she stayed until my husband came home in the evening. I didn't get a wink of sleep and had to head to work just like that. She only left in the evening because my husband came home on time after I contacted him. If he had worked overtime, she might have kept me under her watchful eye and I might not have been able to go to my night shift. The mere thought sent shivers down my spine. My mother-in-law continued to visit repeatedly. Even when my husband spoke to her about it, she would come over every few days. Consequently, I suffered from chronic sleep deprivation and my health started to get worse. This could affect my job. Yet, I always felt bad asking my husband to come home early. We both were puzzled by her unreasonable behavior and wondered how to handle it. It struck us as odd that she always visited on my night shift days, as if she was deliberately targeting them. My husband felt the same, so we decided to confront her together. On my next night shift, my husband took a day off and waited for her at home. As expected, she came and began knocking forcefully on the front door. Nancy, open the door. Are you out again, wasting your time? You're such a careless wife. Exasperated by her loud knocking and shouting, my husband opened the door. Why did it take so long? Were you sleeping? Mike? Why are you home at this time? Aren't you supposed to be at work? I took a day off today. Mother, have you been bothering Nancy like this every time? I only came because Nancy is living such a careless life. I thought I should teach her a lesson. How many times have we told you that Nancy works night shifts? She's probably lying. She's definitely out messing around. Enough. Nancy is working diligently. Do you want to confirm with the hospital? No, that won't be necessary. Then stop bothering Nancy early in the morning. Do you want to continue this and risk breaking ties with us? Why are you saying such cruel things? Because you're causing us distress. Just to be clear, if you come here again, we'll cut all ties with you. Think about it. My husband said she looked pale during this conversation. I guess the stern warning hit her hard. Indeed, after that, she never visited on my night shift days again. Finally, I could sleep in peace, and my health improved, allowing me to focus on work. However, my mother-in-law, who should have been chastised by my husband, caused another problem about a month later. After returning from my night shift and being deep in sleep, I was abruptly woken up by loud banging on the front door. I quickly got up to check through the peephole. As expected, it was my mother-in-law. Nancy, are you sleeping? What were you doing all night? Were you perhaps at a nightclub? Oh, you're not cheating, are you? At first, I was going to ignore the noise outside, but when I heard my mother-in-law yelling loudly, I immediately opened the door. Mother, please don't say things without knowing the whole truth. Oh, so you are here after all. You panicked and opened the door because you knew I was right, didn't you? Do you think what you're doing is acceptable, Mother? Have you forgotten that Mike said if this happened again, we would cut ties with you? At my words, my mother-in-law smirked. There's no way Mike would do that. You probably forced him to say that at the moment. In the midst of this, I noticed the large bag my mother-in-law was carrying. What's in that bag? Well, Mike is on a business trip for the next 2 days, right? I came intending to stay over to make sure you don't cause any trouble. What? Well, can you make some tea? Unbelievably, taking advantage of my husband's absence, my mother-in-law decided to come over. I was so shocked and I was lost for words. The next day, I was off from work, but the day after that I had a night shift. Just because my mother-in-law had come didn't mean I couldn't go to work. But a day off was a different matter. Leaving the house as it was and going out posed a risk. I didn't want her snooping around our house. So I had no choice but to stay home. It was frustrating to think that my precious day off was being ruined by her. She made me work, forcing me to clean and cook. I was supposed to take a little break from household chores while my husband was away. Despite how exhausted I looked, she kept nitpicking, saying things like you're too slow or move more efficiently. It's evident you're lazy every day. Since Mike isn't coming home today, I'll be strict with you. She bossed me around and seemed to enjoy supervising me. I was already tired from work, so naturally, my pace at housework was slower. But no matter how much I tried to explain, she wouldn't understand. She even seemed to doubt that I worked as a nurse. When I found the right moment, I messaged Mike about the situation. He replied, genuinely apologetic, "I'm so sorry. When I get back from the trip, I won't forgive my mother." That message from him gave me hope in this tough situation. It was difficult with her around, but thinking of the day when Mike would be back kept me going. Perhaps sensing something, my mother-in-law hurriedly left before Mike returned. When Mike came back from his trip, he immediately apologized to me. I didn't think my mother could cause such trouble. It must have been stressful for you, Nancy. I'm really sorry. I will never forgive her again. He kept apologizing even though it wasn't his fault. Then he suggested, should we consider moving? But, we bought this place, didn't we? Are we selling it? When I asked, he replied, I'm thinking of renting it out. That way, we can earn rental income and keep a distance from my mother. I see. Okay. I agreed with my husband's plan. It just so happened that my husband's coworker was looking for a place for a single person. So, we decided to rent out our flat to him. Since we knew him, we negotiated a slightly reduced rent and agreed to hand over the existing keys without getting them changed. We were grateful to find a tenant so quickly. My husband and I found a new flat and started our new life there. Days went by peacefully without any visits from my mother-in-law. We anticipated she might visit our old place, find someone else living there, and contact my husband. Surprisingly, that never happened. Perhaps it was because, after returning from a business trip, my husband had firmly told her over the phone that he wanted to cut ties. But with my mother-in-law, we knew it was only a matter of time before she'd forget everything and reach out again. Moving proactively turned out to be the right decision. Life settled into a comfortable routine. Then, one day, the inevitable call from my mother-in-law came in. "Hello? Nancy. Are you having an affair?" She was yelling, clearly agitated. "There's a strange man sleeping in Mike's room. Something's not right." "Mike's room? Where are you right now?" "Where else?" "In your flat, of course." "Wait, how did you get in?" "Don't change the subject. That's not the point right now. It's not our flat anymore." Just as I said that, I heard the sound of police sirens over the phone. "It's not your place?" "That can't be true. I used my spare key." "A spare key? Why do you have?" Before I could ask further, I heard her exclaim, "Oh no, what's happening?" The sounds of commotion and voices, likely police officers, followed. I surmised the police had arrived, and she'd been detained. Then, a different voice came on the line. "Hello?" It sounded like a police officer. "I apologize for the disturbance, but can you explain your relationship to this individual?" "She's my mother-in-law." After answering a series of questions, the call ended, and my husband and I decided to head to the police station. Upon arrival, we saw my visibly exhausted mother-in-law, who seemed to have been questioned thoroughly. The police filled us in on what had transpired. As usual, my mother-in-law had been knocking incessantly on the door of that flat. She'd been shouting various baseless accusations about me. The unusual part was that there was no response from inside the apartment. Losing patience, she used her spare key to enter. From the bedroom, she heard snoring, and assuming it was me taking a nap, stormed in with intentions of waking me up, shouting, "Why are you sleeping in the middle of the day? Get up and go to work." But when she yanked away the covers, she was met with a stranger. She screamed in shock, and the man woke up in alarm. Jumping to conclusions, she accused the man of being my lover. "What are you doing in Mike's house? You must be Nancy's secret lover. The audacity of you, sleeping soundly in someone else's home." The man, a colleague of the husband, seemed to sense danger upon seeing the fiery rage in my mother-in-law's face. She declared, "I'm going to call that woman right now. Don't move from here," before leaving the room to contact me. In the meantime, the colleague, the legal resident of the room, called the police, reporting an intruder. Anyone would have sought help from the police in such a situation. Awakened suddenly to loud shouting and having their bedding pulled off, only to be yelled at for unknown reasons by an unfamiliar middle-aged woman. It must have been terrifying. This led to the police arriving and detaining the mother-in-law. My husband immediately apologized to the colleague living in the room. Through my husband, he'd known we were having problems with his mother, and seemed to recall the connection when she was arrested. The suddenness of my mother-in-law's intrusion must have overwhelmed and confused him. Neither my husband nor I were aware that she had unilaterally made a copy of the key, and we hadn't informed the colleague. My husband was furious. It was natural given he had tarnished his impression with the colleague. He promised to cover the cost of changing the locks and offered compensation for the distress caused. He decided to bill the mother-in-law for all expenses. Although she was reluctant, he warned that if she didn't accept the terms, he'd ask the colleague to file a complaint with the police. Wanting to avoid further trouble with the authorities, she complied. She paid everything from the inheritance left by her late husband and ultimately severed ties with my husband. Perhaps there's no situation more karmic than this, highlighting the endpoint of a mother-in-law tormenting her daughter-in-law. From then on, my husband and I finally reclaimed our peaceful daily lives. Perhaps due to the reduced stress, I became pregnant after this incident and safely gave birth. Now, as a family of 3, we spend our days in happiness.